Hello and good morning. Nice to see you all coming on in to join us this morning for our next webinar on Read. So, welcome aboard. My name is Beck Hughes, and I'm the lead of professional learning here at Raising Literacy Australia. And I'm just thrilled to be able to deliver this webinar with you all this morning. Hello to Julia Jones, who's a Deputy Director here at Raising Literacy Australia. She's going to give us a little wave, hopefully. And Abby Belton, who is our Words Grow Minds Program Officer as well. And I have alongside me Laura. She's working alongside with all the techie pieces today. She's part of our professional learning team as well here at Raising Literacy Australia. And just a friendly reminder, we are recording today's webinar, and this is going to be shared with the wider socials and networks later on. So just please be mindful of your audio and any backgrounds that you have as well behind you. So welcome again. I think, these webinars are such a truly special event and an opportunity for us to really come together as early years professionals, service providers, and even families from South Australia or even throughout states and territories in Australia as well. So you all play such a vital role with children and young families, and you know, today's event is really going to showcase, some really important messages and opportunities for us to really learn and connect. So this is a place for us to share knowledge and lived experiences and to learn and discuss. And a big way we're going to do that is through our chat option bar and panel. So there's a chat box which is available on your Zoom options panel. Kind of looks like two little speech bubbles. So click on that. You can drag and pop it up on your screen. And that's going to be a really great way that we can interact and connect with each other in this webinar today. So if you have got that up and you found it, pop your name in the chat, say hello, say where you're from. Let's connect. Let's see who's joining us for this webinar today. And let's get that chat rolling. Today's webinar on Read is going to offer a range of insights and perspectives on reading to children in the early years and books that are the scaffold for this important interaction. And we're so fortunate to have three key presenters join us for this webinar and share their knowledge and expertise with us. So a very big and warm welcome to Alison O'Brien. Hey, Ali. Ali is a publishing director at Little Book Press, and we're fortunate to work closely with Ali here at Raising Literacy Australia. Because Little Book Press is a publishing arm here at Raising Literacy Australia. So we're very fortunate to have this opportunity and to have Ali on board with us for this webinar today. Also, a very big warm welcome to Ali Durham. Ali is a children's book creator and part-time art and early childhood teacher. So hello there, Ali. And we're also very fortunate to have Diane Krieg on board for our webinar also today. So Diane is the SA State Coordinator for Paint the Town Red, and I'll give some further information about each of our key speakers a little bit later in the webinar. But what we do know is that reading to babies and young children is a magical experience that goes beyond entertainment. It exposes children to varied language and rich language that boosts their brain development and gets them ready for future learning and reading and writing opportunities. It opens doors to new worlds. It enriches children's minds and hearts. And reading a story over and over again is essential to gain the educational and emotional rewards. So this webinar is going to open up the world of reading and books from a range of lenses and hopefully guide you in your own practices, like the way that you choose and deliver stories to young children, and share such powerful messaging and tips to encourage families to pick up quality books and engage in some truly important interactions at home as well. Hello, everyone. I can see you popping your names in the chat. Really nice to see you found that chat and welcome aboard. Nice to see you here today. So firstly, we recognise and pay our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, their ancestors and elders past, present and future from the different First Nations across this country. We acknowledge the importance of connection to land, culture, spirituality, ancestry, family, and community for the well-being of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and their families. Raising Literacy Australia is positioned in South Australia here, and we're delivering this webinar to you on Kaurna country today. And it's great, again, we're seeing people say hello and introducing themselves in the chat. And if you are saying hello and introducing yourself, pop to the land that or the country that you are joining this webinar from today as well. So before we begin, I'll just get through some general housekeeping. So this is a really great opportunity for us to come together as a core group today. And we acknowledge that you also have so much to contribute and share. We have, quite a big group at times. So the chat is that opportunity for us to really learn about each other and to see, what you do have and bring to this webinar. So it does belong to everyone. So just please be remembered to be inclusive and respectful in the language that you do use. And if you do have a story, please be sure just to de-identify any children and families. And again, if you have any brilliant ideas, pop it in the chat. Any excellent reads, suggestions of helpful service providers or organisations, make sure to pop it in the chat too. Again, we do acknowledge that there can be quite a significant number that comes into these webinars, and there will be opportunities for you to pop any questions and comments in the chat after our key presenters today. If we do have a significant number of questions that are in the chat, we will log them and we will create a question and answer sheet. So if we don't get your answer there today, we will make sure we can contact you and pop up a sheet with the recording and the webinar slides as well. So if you have any direct queries, though, here's our our email address, admin here at raisingliteracy.org.au, for you to pop any questions through and we can respond to you individually as well. So I thought we'd begin by a little question just to learn a little bit about one another. And it does then lead on to our next presentation and our key presenters here too. So where do you think your value for reading and books has come from? Think about yourselves here. How did you begin? Where did this come from? Where do we learn this from? Pop it in the chat with what your thoughts are. And it's really, yeah. Oh, Carrie Ann's just shared that mum loved books and reading. So it came from mum, which is really lovely to share. And thank you, Carrie Ann, for getting on that chat quite quickly there as well, which is lovely to see. It's amazing, isn't it, just where this can begin. And how we immerse and enrich children in reading in the early years. It stays with us, doesn't it, for a lifetime. We hold that close. Bethany's just shared school holidays and library books. So that's where it's began for you. Thanks, Bethany. Nice to see you on board today. Anne's shared early reading experiences being read to as a child. Yeah. And Robin from Brisbane Libraries here. Nice to see you here today, Robin. My parents who valued education as they both left school quite early and they were both 14. Wow. Wow. Amazing. But your parents obviously began that journey for you as well, Robin, which is truly special. A bedtime story, Julia's just popped. Yeah, those special moments and routines really, we remember those, don't we? We can still remember those special times that we have and where that's all stemmed from, which is really important for us to really dive back into. Yeah, Diane's just shared having a favorite book as a child, these favorite books that we remember and that have been read to us over and over and over again. We do hold those special memories quite close, don't we? And like I said, it's still with us, isn't it? So those, we gather such strong values and interests and a range of skills from these moments. And it does take adults who feel comfortable and confident to read aloud, and to have these and to have this special time. So adults who can be an inspirational storyteller and a model. It does take time and presence and like what was mentioned, some of those special routines that we can really embed in our everyday worlds. And it takes access to really good and amazing and great quality picture books and stories where we can really grab hold of those memories and want to read those books over and over and over again. Nice to see that you've shared those special memories and again found that chat and connected with us. Thanks so much. All right, so let's dive in. Nice to hear a little bit about you, and hopefully, we can learn a little bit more throughout our next presentation as well. So, I'd like to introduce our first two key presenters. Alison O'Brien, she's the publishing director, like I mentioned, at Little Book Press, and she's worked in children's publishing for 15 years in both the editorial and commissioning departments. And in 2020, Alison led the imprint Bright Light, a fresh new list of picture books that explore big issues such as sovereignty, equality, and gender. Alison has published a wide range of beloved titles, such as The Boy Who Tried to Shrink His Name, Jetty Jumping, and more recently for Little Book Press, Almost a Fish, Two Turtles, and Little Angler. We do love those ones here. Ali Durham, she's a children's book creator and part-time art and early childhood teacher who lives in the Adelaide Hills, as well as a big pile of unfinished projects she mentioned. She had many to-do lists. Ali has written and illustrated 3 picture books, Let's Play and Smile, published by Little Book Press, and Wacko, published by Starfish Bay Children's Books. And she cannot imagine a world without picture books, and she's always on the lookout for books to share with her students or just add to her collection. And we're not thinking about words and pictures. Ali loves to cycle, bushwalk, and read in the sun. So Ali O'Brien, she's going to give us some insight into the world of publishing children's books and guide us in relation to the book selections that we make. Following on from Ali O'Brien, we'll hear from Ali Durham. And any questions that you do have, feel free to pop them in the chat. There will be time for some questions after both presentations at the end. And welcome aboard and over to you, Ali O'Brien.
Thanks, Beck. Thank you for that introduction. It's a real treat for me to be here today with people who share books with kids every day. Beck mentioned that most of my career has been in commercial publishing, where unfortunately there isn't a whole lot of thought that goes into publishing books that support the work of early years practitioners. There are lots of quality books being published and all very passionate people, but it's not something that gets talked about much in the acquisitions process. And I think as the market gets harder and harder, which it is, unfortunately, it's something that we really need to keep at the forefront of our minds to ensure that we are, publishing books that are going to support the needs or meet the needs of the early years sector. So I'm really lucky in my new role. Well, I've been here a year now, so I've probably got to stop saying new. But I'm really lucky at LBP, and it feels like the perfect home because that comes really naturally to us at Little Book Press, given we are the publishing arm of Raising Literacy Australia. I'm really kind of relishing the kind of refocus and reprogramming of my commercial brain that would usually look at the bottom line before everything else. And, the MO at Little Book Press is to publish books that excite kids and their grown-ups. And of course, the early years practitioners who live and breathe stories and literacy and need those stories that will light up the kids that they're working with. So I'm going to start. I think I've gone once. Did I do that? Oh, I'm missing a slide. There it is.
You're right there. That one or the first one?
This is good. So I'm going to start by reading a story that Kate DeCamillo shared on her socials a little while back. I feel like it just beautifully illustrated the power of story for me and our responsibility as people who are curating libraries for kids to provide books that will enrich kids' lives. I signed for a package last week. The delivery guy said, "DeCamillo?" I said, "Yes." "Wait," he said, "did you write Because of Winn-Dixie?" I did. "Oh, wow," he said. "My 3rd grade teacher read that book to us. I'll never forget it." And then he smiled at me, this radiant, beautiful smile. And I suddenly saw him as an 8-year-old kid sitting in class listening to a story. That man's third grade teacher is out there somewhere, and I wanted to let her know this. He remembers. He remembers you reading to him. And I just feel like that's my job done, and we can all pack up now. Beck? Yes?
Please
Feels
don't.
so beautiful and just really, yeah, just encapsulates kind of what we do and why we do it. Um, and I've included here on the same slide the books that I remember from childhood, the books that made me, that they almost feel a part of me, and I can trace so much of my reading identity, and my identity back to these stories. So I thought a good starting point or maybe even a lens in which you can experience this webinar through. It would be a really good for us all to kind of reflect on our favorite books and share the picture books that made us and that we feel really informed our reading identity. Beck, do I have to like start a chat function or anything? No.
No, no, people are going to pop through their ideas, Ali. Might be nice to go back to your slide as well, just to see, those
Sure.
special books too.
Man, I'm really failing on the slide front here.
You're doing
It's
fine.
because there's a
Doing
lag.
fine. Yeah, you got to give it a bit of time. What are those special books that you remember reading? What are those titles? A lot of people shared, what those special memories are. Do you remember those special titles? I wonder what they could be. What are those books that you feel that are part of you forever? Oh, here we go. Bethany shared my treasured
Um,
book was called Bubblegum, which I got from the Scholastic Mag in Year 5. Oh, wow, Bethany. Isn't it amazing how we remember those titles? And Carrie Ann just said The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Robin shared, I still have my collection of golden books. Yes, I remember all of those special books that you used to be able to purchase as well. Thelma
oh, the
and
mole
Sarah.
who knew it was none of his business. Thelma and Sarah must be like a different generation to me. I'm jealous that I missed out on that one.
Oh, wonderful. Again, those special titles that, yeah, we do remember and hold so close, don't we, Ali? Julia
Oh,
shared John Brown, Rose and the Midnight
oh,
Cat, and as a
classic.
teenager, every Judy Blume book.
Yes, Judy Blume for sure. All right. I mean, I feel like, okay,
Oh, here we go.
Thelma
Thelma
and
and
the
the
Unicorn.
Unicorn, and
How
Return of
young are
Thelma.
our guests?
Wow. Yes, holds a special memory. Harry McClary, yes. I think we
Yeah.
all remember those phrases, don't we, Diane? Carrie has mentioned Blinky Bill
Oh yeah, Jeannie Baker, man, Spot.
and Spot.
It's funny how you still remember things like the creases in pages as well. Like I can in my mind's eye, I can just almost see every page and like the flap that was broken and um yeah, just the whole thing, the smell of it.
Where's the green sheep? Oh, that's a true classic, isn't it? Amazing. And it's amazing, isn't it? Everyone's titles are quite different too. Ali as well. Lots of golden books and some fairy tales. Catherine's mentioned too.
Yes, fairy tales.
Well done.
Reminds me of that Einstein quote, who Einstein famously said, if you want your children to be smart, read them fairy tales. And if you want them to be smarter, read them more fairy tales. Good tip.
Oh, just shared Roald Dahl as well, the BFG.
Oh, the Paper Bag Princess was one of mine as well.
We learn so much about each other, don't we, by,
Oh,
finding out
Grog
what
was one
these
of mine as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Shirley Barber. All right.
Amazing.
Should I move on,
Amazing.
Beck?
I reckon we've learned so much about everybody already, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All
Let's keep
right.
moving forward. Thanks so much for sharing.
So, moving on, these are a few, I've moved too fast. How does that
Nope, you're right.
happen? Um, where's the spread with all of like my past books? It doesn't seem to be there. Are there? No,
That one.
no, that one. I'm not sure what's going on there. So these are a few titles that I've published over the years, and I can see how my reading identity was formed as a child and how it now informs my publishing today. I feel like I'm a reader first. I'm drawn to stories that excite me as a reader, and I think that that's a really great approach for any of us who are sharing books with children. There are of course perimeters that we need to work within. We need to know our audience and get to know what the kids in our care, what they love, and that's really important. But if we get a real kick out of a story, it's going to be easier to share and spread that joy and read multiple times. And more importantly, children need to see examples of readers who love reading, particularly those who don't have this modeled at home. They need guides on their reading journey. It doesn't just come naturally. And the more kind of passionate and authentic and excited these guides are about books, the easier it is or the more help they're going to be in kind of helping that child find their interest and establish their own reading identity. So at the very early stage, when I'm first reading a manuscript, um, I'm kind of just looking for stories that affect me emotionally or otherwise. Sometimes it's through humor or a cool concept or a surprising twist or a distinctive voice. Sometimes it's artwork alone that ignites something in me. I worked with a legendary publisher many years ago called Margreta Lamond, who is, still working, and some of you may know her. She works one-on-one with authors and illustrators now. And we used to describe the feeling as a buzzing or a crackling in the brain, like you could almost feel the neurological pathways lighting up when we read something that really excited us. And there are, of course, kind of tried and tested elements of a good story, which we'll explore as well. But if there's one element that I'm looking for above everything else, it's that the book is memorable. It's going to endure, and you're going to be able to read it multiple times, and it's going to stay with the reader beyond one telling. So with all of these books, my brain kind of buzzed and crackled when I first read them, just like as a simple Word document. And they all appealed to me for wildly different reasons. I won't go through them all, but I'll just kind of pull out a few titles that kind of illustrate some of the main things I look for or that I'm drawn to when I read a manuscript. So with Two Turtles, it was the overall kind of originality of this project, like the story, Kia's voice, the surprising open-ended ending. It was just so exhilarating because I had never read anything like it before. And the characters are also flawed. They're, life is grey and we're all flawed, and you can still be a good person and make kind of bad decisions. So I really liked that message that was nestled in there as well. Almost a Fish was one of those kind of no-brainers. Axolotls are so lovable and cute, but kind of what exactly are they? And if there was ever going to be a book about an animal who had an identity crisis and didn't know what it was going to be an axolotl. Also, Julianne's language really stood out to me. Like, there's a repetition going on that's really beautiful to read out loud. And she's got all these synonyms for almost. And all of that and the happy ending, like it's kind of feel good factor of 11 and all about self-acceptance and belonging. And another thing with this one is when I first read the manuscript, I could see it already as a book, and I could also see the audience of children responding to it. Like I could see and hear them. They were calling out to Audrey every time she guessed the wrong animal. And I think that that's a really green flag as well. If you read a picture book and you can imagine children kind of engaging with the text, that's a really good sign, because the last thing you want when you're reading to a child or to a group of children is a silent audience. So Little Angela was just like a really kind of perfect, simple concept. We all know that babies love flat books and reveals, exciting reveals. But I often find that these books for babies, like the content of these books, are just a vehicle for the flaps and the bells and whistles. And with any kind of novelty aspect, I want them to kind of be essential to the narrative, for them to have meaning. Like the classics Dear Zoo and Where's Spot. Without the flaps, the story doesn't work. And so I feel like marrying these two things really kind of lifts the benchmark for that baby book Lift the Flap series of books. With My Two Blankets, this is an old book. It's actually 10 this year, but I still get messages from readers about how life-changing this story has been for them. We're going to touch a little later on about the power of stories, and Ali's going to go deeper into the science of reading. But when I'm choosing books, I try to never forget that every time a child reads a narrative, their brain is literally building neurological pathways. And the more stories they read, the more pathways they create. And when it comes time for them walking that path in real life, they've had practice. They've been there before because of the stories that they've read. They've felt the emotions and empathized with the characters, and more often than not, they've even resolved the problem. So stories are literally practice for life. And so when I'm acquiring stories, I always try to look for narratives that explore life with all its twists and turns and ups and downs, and those big feelings and those big milestones in life that kids often need support with. And The Boy Who Tried to Shrink His Name is a book that kind of spoke to me on that level as well. But with this book, it was also raising the issue around English speakers not making the effort to, or not knowing the importance of pronouncing non-English names correctly. So as a publisher, I always want, and I feel like anyone who's sharing books for children, we always want to have the book on the shelf for when the child reaches for it. And I knew that this was a conversation that many people were having. Kind of, people were sharing memes, and it was online, and people were talking about it, and in parenting circles, what have you. So, I think it's okay also to buy books and to share books that are illuminating a topic, or that are a tool for starting important conversations. If you're looking to kind of discuss something with children, hopefully, like, there's an Australian publisher who has your back and has published a book that's going to help you deliver that. So also, I just wanted to touch briefly on artwork, and this might be obvious to everyone, but publishers put a lot of effort and money and time into ensuring that a book speaks to the right audience and it finds its right reader. So some like we've been told our whole lives to not judge a book by its cover, but it's actually an okay thing to do, I think. I know that I spend so much time pairing the right illustrator to the stories that I commission, and there's so much I need to consider so much when I'm doing that. But the one thing that I'm trying to achieve above everything else is finding an art style that positions the book perfectly in the market. Like I want the right reader to find that book. I want it to be when they look at the cover, I want it to be immediately obvious that that I want it to be immediately obvious what kind of book it is. So like Heidi McKinnon, for example, her very simple shapes and bright colors it's just obviously a baby book, and Jake's artwork for Two Turtles kind of screams indie darling, offbeat story. And Hannah Somerville, who illustrated Jetty Jumping, she's got a very traditional kind of art style that encapsulates that traditional storybook narrative. And of course, Sophie Beer is very contemporary and stylistic, and is going to appeal to that really kind of young modern family who is talking to their kids about family diversity and really value that and is having that conversation with their children. So to a certain extent, you can trust that the artwork on the front cover of a book and the book's design, that they are reflecting the story that's inside. So on that note, I've got a little message here and I can't click because it's in my way. Oh,
I'm going to keep clicking.
I've got a speech bubble from my audio that's right above. Yeah, thanks,
I'll
Beck.
help you out. You're right, Ali.
Thank you. So speaking of kind of curating libraries for kids and what to look for in a picture book, I thought it would be really interesting to look at the top 10 books in Australia last week. And as you can see, there's a lot of licensed product. And I'm not throwing shade on Bluey, love Bluey, national treasure, protect him at all costs. There are a few fairy tales in there, which is great. These two fairy tales are $1.75, which raises a whole other issue about the value we place on books and how our authors and illustrators deserve a living wage. But we can have that conversation another time. There's also a celebrity title and a couple of classics. So I'm not sure how kind of known this is, but our department stores, Kmart and Big W, and all of those large department stores really determine the Australian bestseller list. They sell the most volume of books that are bought in Australia, and it's so great that books are accessible and priced for everyone, and there are a lot of things at play here. But what strikes me about this list is the lack of diversity of stories. And here's the reason why. Kids don't know what they love until they're shown. I've already touched on my own reading identity, but it can't be underestimated how much it plays a part in literacy learning. We want our children to be able to read, but what makes more of an impact long term is if they see themselves as readers with interests and preferences like any adult reader. And the best way for them to discover what they love is to read a broad range of stories until they get that kind of crackle and that buzz. And that happens differently for everyone. And that's not going to happen if we are just putting a pile of bestsellers in front of a child. We are critical in curating diverse collections and creating an environment for kids to find their reading identity. So I put this slide together, I reckon, in under 2 minutes, which just goes to show how easy it is to kind of select a broad range of titles. So I don't think anyone should be relying on bestseller lists or any list. Kids need funny books and spooky books and sad books and exciting and wacky and serious books, books that nestle really big topics and books that just aim to entertain. We really need to mix it up. And I know, I try to do that when I publish, and hopefully, everyone that's working with children and sharing books are trying to mix it up so that every child finds the right book for them. It kind of makes me think of that metaphor that is shared a lot in publishing about books either being a window or a mirror. They're mirrors that readers can see their own lives reflected in on the pages, and, they can bring comfort and a sense of belonging, but they're also windows that allow readers a view of lives and stories that are different from their own. So something else that I'm very aware of in my job, actually, just quickly, there's this quote that kind of encapsulates that as well. If we teach a child the skill of reading without encouraging the love of reading, we will have created a literate illiterate, and no high test score will ever undo that damage. I think Kayleen Beers is a US educator. I'm also not sure about using illiterate as a noun, but you get the message. So yes, something else that I'm really aware of in my role, and I think that we should all be talking about and kind of being mindful of, is the difference between a statement text and a narrative text, and the rise of statement texts in the Australian landscape. So Sophie Beer's book, Kindness Makes Us Strong, is a perfect example of a statement text. And there's definitely a place for these books. I published this series, and I'm very proud of it. And Sophie is an amazing storyteller. She's just published her first graphic novel. I think that they're great conversation starters, and they radiate all the right emotions. But essentially, they're lists. And in this case, they're lists of different acts of kindness. So just to give you a flavor, kindness is a friendly hello. Kindness is taking turns. Kindness is playing with others. And then it ends with kindness is what makes us strong. And I also have Dogger here. Dogger is also a book about kindness, and we probably all know Dogger because we connected with it emotionally as a child, and we remember it from all those years ago. So, of course, in Dogger, we meet a little boy named Dave and his beloved dog, his plush toy Dogger. We see how precious Dogger is to Dave, how much time they spend together, how Dogger is Dave's only toy, unlike his sister Bella, who has dozens of toys all falling out of her bed. And the night before the school fair, Dave loses Dogger, and he's heartbroken, and the whole family bands around him. And you get a real sense that Dogger is part of the family, and the loss of him has impacted them all. And so Dave goes to bed miserable without Dogger, and has to go to the fair the next day without him as well. And to make matters worse, Bella, his sister, wins the raffle at the fair, and she wins a massive new teddy bear. And that just really heightens Dave's kind of jealousy. And he wanders off feeling very sorry for himself, and he spots a toy stall, and among all the other toys, he spots Dogger. And he runs off to find his mum. He ends up finding Bella, and they race back to the stall only to find a girl walking off with Dogger, having just bought him. So Dave and Bella plead with the girl. Dave starts crying, and then Bella does something very kind. She trades the brand new teddy bear that she's just won in the raffle. She trades it with the girl, and the girl walks off with the new teddy bear, and Dave is reunited with Dogger. So both of these books are about kindness, and both have a place. But when we talk about kind of books that change us, humans need stories that they emotionally connect with, characters that we relate to and love, and stories that take us to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And that may sound really um, extreme, but for a 4-year-old, losing your favorite toy, it's like high stakes. And giving away a brand new teddy bear that's as big as you that you've won at the raffle is kind of the ultimate act of kindness when you're a child. So both of these books are about kindness, but if one is going to increase empathy in a child and shape them into a kind adult, it's Dogger, for all of those reasons. So next up, if my slides are in order, I thought I would run through a few elements of a picture book that I look out for, I guess, when I'm assessing picture books and trying to identify quality, diverse books. And first up is action, is character. So we've all been told to show rather than tell, and we've been told that since we were in primary school with our writing. We need to connect to a character. We need to respond to them like we would in real life, and that's through actions, behavior, and what they say, rather than like we never meet someone in real life and they kind of give us some bullet points on what kind of person they are. So I'm going to read one of the stories from Morty and Bear, which is very short. And as I'm reading, just think about how much we learn about Morty and Bear through their actions and speech. Beck, are you doing that now or am I? I
What
will.
am I doing? No, I'm not turning anything. Do you want me to turn something?
Oh, where are the slides? There should
I've
be
got
internals of
there's
Morty
Born
and
to
Bear.
Fly.
Are they not there?
No, there's Born to Fly.
Hmm. Okay, I'll just read it here. It still works because
Go for it.
yeah, you're just listening to the text. Bear, said Morty, let's both sit in your chair while you tell me a story. Certainly, said Bear. So Bear told Morty a story. That was a good story, said Morty. Now I will tell you a story. Once upon a time, long, long ago, and far, far away, Bear closed his eyes. Bear, said Morty, do not go to sleep while I'm telling you a story. I'm not asleep, said Bear. I'm listening with my eyes shut. So Morty began again. Once upon a time, long, long ago, and far, far away, Bear's head sank onto his chest. Bear, you are too asleep, said Morty. Listen while I'm telling you a story. I am listening very hard, said Bear. I am shutting my eyes to concentrate. So Morty started again, but soon after, Bear let out a big snore. Morty pinched his nose to wake him up and said, You have hurt my feelings now, going to sleep during my story. And she started to cry. I'm so sorry, said Bear. Why don't we go for a walk to wake me? And I can finish your story while we walk. Good idea, said Morty. Once upon a time, said Bear, long, long ago and far, far away. And in the artwork, you can see that Morty is the one who now falls asleep on Bear's shoulders. So the great Jan Ormerod, RIP, really shows us how it's done. Like not once are we told what sort of characters Morty and Bear are. We don't need to be told. It's like all there, perfectly portrayed in their actions and dialogue. So the next element that I look for in a story is a satisfying payoff. Beck, I don't have time to read this, do I? What do
You've
you
got,
reckon?
yeah, you got about 5 minutes.
All right. Should I read it? It's very hard to gauge the audience.
Give it a crack.
All right. Gilbert peered out from his egg and saw the sky for the first time. The moon glowed, the stars sparkled, the birds wheeled, and Gilbert knew where he wanted to be. Up, 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 with the storm petrels, the shearwaters, and the wandering albatross. But Gilbert had big, clumsy feet and small, fluffy wings. He flapped and flapped, but instead of flying, he fell on his face, his back, and his bottom. All I need is a few more feathers, he told himself. I think that's what it says down there. Gilbert's feathers grew and he learned to waddle. Now I can do it, thought Gilbert. He waddled and flapped, waddled and flapped. He slipped on the ice, tripped on the rocks, and stumbled over his sleeping family. Give it up, Gilbert, said Uncle Crabstick. And then his auntie says something nasty too, which has been cut off. I wonder if I can. But Gilbert didn't give up. He knew if he kept trying, he would find a way to fly. Just going to.
You're right.
Sorry. One day, the wandering albatross came gliding across the sky. The albatross tucked its wings and did a perfect dive. It spread its wings and soared, and it didn't flap once. I've been flapping too hard, thought Gilbert. I need to spread my wings and soar. The albatross glided away on the wind. Gilbert followed over rocks and ice. He waddled up, 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 through the wind and snow until he reached the top and saw the whole world spread out below. The albatross soared away over the sparkling ocean. Wait for me, cried Gilbert. Watch me soar. Gilbert spread his wings and jumped. Down, 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 slipping, spinning, stumbling, tumbling, until he splashed into the sea. Gilbert tumbled, bubbled, and sank. When he opened his eyes, he saw stars, moons, and clouds. He sank deeper and saw floating forests, rolling gardens, and mighty mountaintops. Gilbert tucked his wings and did a perfect dive. Then he spread his wings and flew. So just to kind of recap and go over that, we learn right at the beginning of the story, literally on the first spread, what Gilbert's wish in life is. He wants to fly, and he longs for it so much that it was the first thing he thought of when he cracked through his shell. So Gilbert is then met with a series of obstacles that he needs to overcome. And as he's kind of met with these obstacles, we're barracking for him. Each time he thinks he's going to clear the hurdle. And of course, when he fails, we're there empathizing with him. You know, our emotions go up and down with him. And as they do that, there's kind of a building of tension, like an accumulative effect. And yeah. So when Gilbert finally, at the end, when he's convinced that it's his technique that is the problem, and he climbs up the cliff and jumps off the cliff in the hope that he will soar, it's at this point that the reader is led to believe that Gilbert is going to fail spectacularly. And when we think that, our emotions kind of plummet. However, this is the payoff. Gilbert achieves his wish just when we thought he was destined to fail big time. He gets what he wants, what was set out at the beginning of the story, but he gets it in a surprising way. And that's the key to a really good payoff. When the end is happy and the reader gets what they want, and the character that we love and that we've barracked for gets what they want. But it's got to be surprising, it's got to be unpredictable. So in Gilbert's case, he doesn't get to fly with the birds, but he finds his own sky and his own underwater sky, and that world beautifully reflects the sky that he first saw when he came into the world. So yeah, when you're kind of looking for narrative picture books to share with children, it's really good to kind of look for those that have that motive and an obstacle that the character needs to overcome, and an accumulation of tension and that surprising, satisfying payoff at the end. And there are so many exceptions to this rule. I feel like some of my favorite picture books don't hit these notes, but it's kind of essential to know and understand what a traditional story arc looks like, because it's undoubtedly one of the most effective ways to tell a story. And last but not least, I thought I would talk about the artwork in a picture book and how the visual narrative, it really should be extending the narrative, the words, the pictures should extend the text rather than just reflect it. And this is illustrated so beautifully on the first spread of Almost a Fish. I feel like if any of us read that, I can't remember my first response to this line when I first read it, but if I didn't have Audrey's beautiful artwork there and I just read Audrey lived alone in a river under a rock, I would probably visualize a very sad and lonely character and a very kind of colorless beige world. But Audrey has extended the text so much in this case that she's completely changed the meaning of the words. Like you can see, look at Audrey there. You can see how happy she is, how pleased with herself. She loves living alone. She lives in a beautiful, colorful world that's full of life. And there are all these extra kind of layers to the artwork as well. There's rubbish in the foreground, and there's a little frog who kind of has a very knowing smile, like he's more than just a bystander. And he becomes a little character that is by Audrey's side the whole way, and is something that kids can seek and find on every spread. So I hope that, talking about the different elements of a picture book and the things that I look for and the things that kind of light me up, I hope that they help you with your own collections or in whatever way you share books with kids. There are so many great publishers in Australia doing great things and publishing great local books, and even more Australian authors and illustrators that we need to get behind and champion. And the more that we do this, of course, it's going to help the children that we work with and set them up to thrive in life. But we're also securing our storytellers of tomorrow. These kids are going to be the people who love story and who are writing and illustrating for the next generation. So thank you.
Thank you, Ali. We're going to breathe over because Ali Durham's going to weave in and tie into that amazing presentation as well.
Thanks.
Now, Ali.
Thanks, Beck. Hi, everyone. And thanks, can I just say thank you so much to Ali for sharing your unique insight into the world of children's book publishing. I love hearing how passionate you are about creating meaningful and beautiful books for children. As a children's book creator and teacher, early childhood teacher, I'm always on the lookout for quality picture books that I know are going to deliver meaningful engagement for children. So how lucky are we to have Little Book Press making amazing picture books, and Raising Literacy Australia for championing literacy and reading in the early years. So I'm really, really passionate about reading to young children, excited to share with you some tips today on how to effectively read to your child or group of children, as well as unpacking some of the reasons why reading is so important. As a children's book creator, I've been in love with picture books for my whole life. And these are some of the books I've created. Let's Play was first published in 2014 and included as part of the Raising Literacy's book gifting program, amazing reading program that delivers books to families across South Australia. Smile, some of you may know Smile. It's went nationwide. It was commissioned by Good Start Early Learning, published by Little Book Press, and was gifted to every good starter in across Australia. Wacko was published by Starfish Bay Children's Publishing about growing up. And the last one there is a series on healthy meals, published by Little Book Press, which I've illustrated. So our next slide, let's see. There we go. Like Ali, I just wanted to quickly share some of the books that made me. Of course, these were read to me initially by my parents, and I remember reading them over and over again, and actually still have some of them here today. I've got my original Ping book complete with the brown sticky tape, because it's about 50 years old. The process of thinking and choosing these books actually took me back to thinking about what reading is about itself and why I enjoyed it, and I still do now. I wanted to be transported, to be entertained and challenged, and I wanted to learn something. So the books I've chosen have all of these elements. They have strong characters, they evoke some sort of emotion in me, were engaging, entertaining, and they took me on a journey. And in the case of the Magic Faraway Tree, it was a very magical one. So which leads me to my next slide. Don't think it's quite working there. There we go. That reading is magic. Picture books are an amazing marriage of both words and images, and they take us on a different journey each and every time we open one. The image in the middle is the 2024 Book Week poster, and the theme was reading is magic. And the image there was created by Jess Ratcliffe, an amazing Australian illustrator, and I think it really evokes that sense of magic that reading a story gives us. By this, I mean how reading gives children access to the transformative power of story and imagination, and really can take you on a journey. And its impact on the brain is quite remarkable as well, as you'll see on the next slide. So our brain is the only organ not fully developed at birth. 90% of its development occurs before the age of 5. And all babies' brains are similar at birth. They contain billions of brain cells. Each cell has the ability to expand and connect to thousands of other cells. And every positive experience like cuddling, talking, singing, and reading to your baby will help build and strengthen these neural pathways. As you can see on the slide, the development of the brain happens really, really quickly in the early years. And in fact, by the age of 3, it's almost fully formed at 85%. So the first few years of a child's life are absolutely crucial in terms of their development. And it's when the foundation for learning, health, and behaviour are laid down. Oh, thanks, Beck. So how does reading grow minds? So reading to young children exposes them to words and a variety of language patterns. And children that are read to daily have been exposed to about 290,000 to 500,000 more words than children who haven't been read to by the time they start kindy, which is quite remarkable. Develops what we call their word banks. Words, the building blocks by which a child's mind or brain grows. And reading gives us new words other than what we normally use in our daily communication. Reading builds critical thinking skills. And by this, I mean the cognitive processes that enable children to make meaning and make sense of the world, including creativity, problem solving, curiosity, flexibility. And we can help develop these critical thinking skills by asking open-ended questions and asking a child to predict what they think might happen next in a story. And when we read to a child, we're asking them to hear a new vocabulary, and they're listening to those words and putting them together, and in doing that, they're learning to make new meaning. So when you read together, you learn together. Reading develops emotional literacy. Picture books, like Ali was saying, they present children with different perspectives, cultures and different contexts. They ask the child to walk in the footsteps of someone else. And the very act of reading is beneficial for all. It builds emotional connection and develops that special parent-child bond. Reading also develops concentration and imagination. When we read aloud, we can support memory and concentration skills by skipping words and asking predictive questions. Children will often ask for the same book over and over again. They enjoy the familiarity of it, and that very repetition is increasing opportunities for that information and that vocabulary to be encoded. I know my own children, when they had their favourite books, would read them over and over again and often memorise the whole book, which in itself is making meaning, and they're making those connections between the words and the pictures. So we're moving on now to thinking about what are the best books for children in the early years and why. As an early childhood educator, I choose books based on the readability, and by this I mean the length and the language of the book. So generally, like Ali was saying, picture books have generally no more than 500 words, and I think these words should be interesting to listen to or to hear, have a good flow, be age appropriate. Think about whether they rhyme. Are they fun to read? I often choose a book on its relatability. Is it relevant to the child? If a child's interested in insects and mini beasts, that might direct your choice of a book. Are there opportunities to build on the experience, like with music or games and things like that? Does it engage their emotions or their senses? Does it provide opportunities for deeper thinking? And its overall appeal, like Ali touched on, is that relates to the aesthetics of the book, the graphics, the end papers, the font sizes, the finishes, sort of basically the package, the book itself, and any other special whiz-bang features it might have. And though we're separating the next few slides into different age groups, it's really important to know that a good book can always be transferred and loved across each stage of development. So books for babies. So it's never too early to read to your baby. New babies can see high contrast images, such as black and white patterns, and from 3 months onwards, babies will begin to see colour and seek it out. So this is another book press title, my first book of Australian baby animals, with some amazing black and white contrasting patterns. At this time, they also show real interest in faces. So books that have photos of illustrations of faces, whether they're cartoon, like this cute little tiger on the Peekaboo Zoo, that they're interactive and playful, that they might have some lift the flap features and reveal features, like Ali was saying, that they'd be sturdy, and obviously because babies at their oral stage of development will will no doubtedly like to have a bit of a chomp. So moving on to toddlers. Again, sturdy board books, and you recognise Little Angler from Ali's amazing books that she was sharing. So we're moving into some board books and some thicker, sort of thicker paperback books as well. Books that have playful sounds and rhymes, repeated sentences. Orange Pear, Apple Bear was one of my children's favourites. Basically 4 words in different orders. I'll just give you an example of this one. So we've got orange pear, apple bear, apple pear, orange bear, and it goes through and flips these words in different orders, and is lots of fun. Let's Go Strolling is another little book press title, which is written and illustrated by an amazing South Australian team. And Katrina Germain's text is always rhyming and rhythmic and really lovely to read. And Danny Snell's illustrations have so much in them as well. So that's another really good one. Repetition is really enjoyed too by toddlers, so that they can learn the kind of the rhythm of the book, and it's easy for them to engage in it as well. So moving on to preschoolers, rhyming text is still enjoyed. You'll recognise Almost a Fish. These narratives that explore friendship and family and identity. So Bev and Kev explores friendship. Another South Australian author illustrator team. Books that take us into an imaginary world, and fact books as well. Big questions, big sort of question books like statement texts are often very popular at this age as well. And books that, like we're talking about with the critical thinking, I Want My Hat Back. John Klassen is really clever at putting words and pictures together for positioning these sort of critical thinking type books. So I'll just move to the next slide. And so through the simple act of reading a book with a child, we are giving children access to the transformative power of story. We're disconnecting from our screens, computers and phones. We're giving children a chance to walk in the shoes of others and inspiring children to become lifelong readers. That's little illustrations from my book, Wacko. Reading to young children. So when you're reading to a group of young children, or even to your own child at home, how do you draw them in? How do you? For me, it's making the act of reading really exciting. So obviously showing enthusiasm. Do you want to come and read a book with me? Come on, everybody, let's come over here. You might even reveal the book, sort of hide it in a special book box, or put a magic cloth over the book. The place, where do you like to read? Where do you like to share books with children? Welcome to put something in the chat if you've got a place at home or at work, if you're an early childhood practitioner, where you might like to share a book. One of my favourite places with my own children was our trampoline. I used to put the cushions and the doonas, and we used to not jump as we were reading, but we used to just snuggle up and take a pile of books and read together. So that was one of my favourite places to read. And always just considerations for the group. Know your group. If you're working with a big group of children, some children that might have some neurodivergencies, you might need some fidget toys or weighted blankets to help with focusing. And just moving to the next slide, we're now going to talk about tips for delivering a story time. So once you've got everyone's attention, one way of doing that is you can, do a little rhyme or a song, or everybody do this sort of a song. There's a link there to Jaybri, and it's a little chant all about reading called Let's Take a Look at This Book. You might like to have a look at that a bit later. I don't think I've got time now to actually do that with you, but really important before you begin reading is that we have to explore the cover and talk about what the children can see on the cover, and they can start to have a little bit of a think for themselves and think, I wonder what this book is about. And then always it's important to tell them who the illustrator is and obviously the author and the title. And when you're positioning the book, I always find I tend to naturally do it on the left side of me. And then when I'm reading to a big group, I do what I call swooping in front of the group so that everyone gets to see the pictures. So I'm sorry, I'm speeding through because I'm conscious of time. So moving on to the delivery. I think what's really important when reading effectively is a willingness to relax and be playful. That's pretty much all it takes. If you know the book, it's much easier to read expressively. So what I'm going to quickly do now is read a little bit of this amazing book called Hip Hop Barn, and I want you to just tune into the way I use volume. I might change the speed and I might change the pitch of my voice. And be a little playful as well. So Beck's going to help me. Thank you, Beck.
Yeah.
Read. I'm just going to move myself back so you guys can see. Okay. The Hip Hop Barn by Phil Cummings and Mandy Foote. The farmer was tired at the end of the day. So he went to bed and snored away. The animals, they took a chance to have some fun, to have a dance. The cows all kicked their hooves in time. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. The sheep all danced in a crooked line. Tippity-tap, tippity-tap. We can also think about how we can use our bodies. So Phil Cummings, his tippity-taps and his flippity-flaps, we can use our hands and fingers to make some body percussion. So this is a chance to actually get the children involved in the storytelling as well. And obviously trying to use our facial expressions when it's really exciting. Our eyes will be popping open. I think children will have fun when they're part of the experience. So invite them to chime in. So sorry, there's somebody at my door then. So we're just going to the next bit where we can, let's see, here we go, just towards the end. Whoops, sorry. Beck, do you mind going forward a little bit? Okay, so quackity quack, quackity quack. And then suddenly, stop! They all stop dancing. They turn their heads. Go to Sloop. The farmer said. Hip hop. Everyone into the hay. No more dancing here today. Oh. And of course, all those animals jumped into bed, but did they? So that's some way that you can a few ways that you might like to bring a story to life. I hope you maybe got some ideas. So after reading, it's time to talk and reflect, ask some open-ended questions. There's some questions listed there. Very conscious of the time once again, so I'll just hurry through. But you might like to extend the book. So Hip Hop Farm, you can see there's a little farm image there. You might like to set up some small world areas in your preschool or at home with some little soft toys. Get children to do some bookmaking together, retell the story together. Lots of ideas there for songs and extension. So thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all an amazing reading journey with your children. And please feel free to ask me any questions at the end, and we can try to answer them as best I can. So thank you.
Thank you, Ali O'Brien and Ali Durham. Wow. There are so many elements that I've kind of pulled and poked, and Ali, particularly O'Brien here, when you're talking about how we can ignite the brain, and you're drawing us into really making some really careful considerations with the book choices that we make for young children, and diversifying the collections, because we are actually creating really strong identities for children's reading for life. And that really struck me, and I think it gives us a lot of opportunity for us to reflect on perhaps what we are, the books that are on our bookshelves, and what types of books that we are providing, and really diving into those ideas that you've given us. So Ali O'Brien, a wonderful opportunity for us to really hear from your perspective this morning, and we're very thankful to have you part of this webinar today. And Ali, of course, how to create and deliver the stories, and again linking back to the way we do deliver that makes we're imparting that joy, that inspiration, and we're giving books that true value that they deserve, and bringing them to life and for future learning. So thank you for those tips and suggestions, and drawing it back to the why as well. So there's lots that we're definitely going to be able to unpack and put forward in our practices from both of your presentations this morning. No, Jules just mentioned here that she could listen to you all day, Ali, and thank you. So again, and your presentations have made probably a big, a large opportunity for us to really dive in and reflect on our own worlds as well. So thank you. If there are any questions and comments coming through, we will log those, but we're going to continue to move forward as well. And we're going to move forward into our next guest speaker now. And I'd like to introduce Diane Krieg, and she's the SA State Coordinator for Paint the Town Red. And Diane's been working with Paint the Town Red groups in South Australia for several years, and she's very passionate about supporting families and communities to understand the role they play in developing early literacy skills with children from birth. Diane's journey began from Paint the Town Red back in 2015, when she was the director of a children's centre, and saw firsthand just how this approach can positively create change, build capacity, and strengthen a community. It's really nice to have the lens of community come through in this webinar this morning, Diane, and you're going to share with us just how this operates, but also how it makes a difference for children's outcomes with families and communities. So welcome, Diane, and thank you so much for your presentation today.
Thank you, Beck, and hello to everyone, and thank you, Ali and Ali. That was so very interesting, and everything that you said, and I love that you went into the why, why it is just so important to read with children. And I'll go in a little bit about how you can enhance what's already happening in your sites and really work out in the community. So what is the Paint the Town Red? And as you can see, we are a play on the word read. So reading is really important to us. And if there's one thing that I say for parents to remember, is to read a book with your child every day from birth. If they can remember that, then I will be happy. So we are actually a charity organisation. We work nationally to support services and communities to encourage parents to read with their child from birth, build on understanding of early brain development, and thank you, Ali, for touching on that, and the connections that grow every time we read, talk, sing, draw, play and rhyme with the child. And we are here to support you to build your own Paint the Town the Red community that provides a platform to work in an ongoing way with families, to embed the Words Grow Mind messages, and also any extra messages you might develop with your Paint the Town Red community. Just to let you know, there are over 100 communities across Australia and 16 here within South Australia. And we just had our first community start in the Northern Territory in an Indigenous community. So that's really exciting too. So they've started to paint the town red, black and yellow. So how does Paint the Town Red work? So, we are based on three big ideas, 3 ideas of best practice. So it is about the attachment and the importance of early brain development, what Ali was talking about, that every time you have a positive interaction with your child, whether it be sharing a book or talking, singing, whatever you're doing with your child from birth, every time you do that, their brain starts to fire up and they start developing new learnings. We also are based on the key elements of early literacy, so speaking, listening, developing your word bank, learning the principles of reading a book. So all those really early literacy things we want to encourage. Sorry, my brain's gone. And then also universal and targeted community capacity building. So one of our main aims is, yes, we want educators and people who work with children to understand things, but more importantly, or just as importantly, we want the community to understand the role that they play in developing children's early literacy from birth. So we will provide support and collective knowledge to communities to establish their own Paint the Red community. And every community that comes on board, we learn and we take all the good ideas and we share them amongst each other. This program works the best when you have a range of local agencies working together in a collective impact approach and a shared purpose. So if you have education, you have council, you have library, you have health, you have community centres. So the more people you have from different agencies within your community, the stronger this is, and the more that you can share the work. It's not about extra work, is what we try to say. It's about working smarter, not harder, and building on what's already happening within your own service and community. So how does Paint the Town Red work? So once you've defined your community, which will look different depending on where you are. If you're in a small rural location, you have your community defined already. If you are in a metro area, then it's about looking at what your key suburbs are around the services that you're working with and defining your area that way. And they're the suburbs that you would target and track in terms of data. So you join the Paint the Red community. So that is the one and only cost to start, and it is purchasing a starter kit, and they're not expensive at all. Each community will then adapt a name. So it will probably be reflective on where you are. So for example, we have Paint the Bridge Red in Murray Bridge. We have Paint Port Lincoln Red in Port Lincoln. We have Paint Parks and Gardens Red. So we work in 5 suburbs within Adelaide that reflect parks and gardens within their name. So you can see that kind of pattern that happens. And then probably the biggest thing, and this is the thing that children and families will identify with, is a mascot. So within your community, you decide on what will be your mascot based, on what you think will best fit your community. And you would do that in consultation with the community and perhaps in consultation, with key people in the community and elders, so that you are going to hatch a mascot that will be loved in the community by everyone. You commit to at least one big reading day event annually, and this is held out in your community so that you are bringing in all your services together in a location that's accessible for everyone, and then families can also access it. And it might be in a local park, it might be in a local library, it might be in a hall somewhere. So it's about taking this program out into the community. As well as you are embedding your messages and your literacy program within your daily service, which you would be anyway. And again, it's not about anything new, it's just about adding to it. So within your literacy program you're already delivering in your service, you might be also adding in the messages using your mascot as that focal point and that point of connection for children and families. And we also ask that each community agrees to collect data, because that's the way that we can show that we are really making a change in what's happening. So we use both AEDC data as well as local data and anecdotal stories to evaluate. So lots of different ways that we can collect data just to show the real impact that the program's having. I'm going to tell you a story now about a Paint the Town Red community and how it begun and the impact that we are seeing. And this is actually the community that I helped initiate when I had a role of a director in a children's centre. So what we found that, as an education service, we were meeting with other agencies regularly, perhaps 3 or 4 times a year, and talking about what was happening within our services and how we were supporting children and families. But we never were really working together. So we were sharing what we were doing and we're all doing great things, but we're all very much working in silos. So we had, nothing that we were coming together to work and deliver together. So we felt that needed to change, because power of working together was just so much greater than working individually. When we looked at our AEDC data and we looked at the suburbs, around where we knew we were all working in, there were a few different education sites in there, they showed that children were so vulnerable in language and literacy, and as much as 1 in 4 children were starting school vulnerable in this area. And so we knew we needed to do something, and we needed to do something so that children started school in a better position. And it doesn't matter what extra supports they get at school, it can be really hard to close that gap once they start that little bit behind. So we actually created our own Parks and Gardens Red group, and we started that in 2015. And again, I heard about it at an AEDC conference and took it to the group, and we decided that, yes, this is something as a large group working together we really wanted to do. So in 2016, we hatched our mascot, and you can see in there Parker the Pelican, and Parker the Pelican is very much loved by children and community. And even though well, secretly he's 9, but he doesn't have an age. We don't talk about age anymore. Even though he has been in our community for 9 years, he is still just as much as loved and adored. And some of the children who first started with him when he hatched still come to our events today. But every time we hold an event, we always have new families come and learn the story and join in with the program. And as you can see, he's present in a range of services. So we have long day care, we have occasional care, we have play groups, preschool, early years of schools in primary schools. We have the libraries, community centres, councils, community events, and hippies. So, and services come and go who are really involved. And so that list changes as well. But what I wanted to show you was it is a real community. He is not just attached to one service or a particular type of service. So, our Paint Parks and Gardens RET, our AEDC data did improve. So it'll take about 5 years to see a real change. So we were tracking really nicely, and then COVID hit, and we couldn't get those big community events. But we also know that families stopped attending a lot of play groups, stopped attending a lot of community events. So we did see that our data has gone backwards a little bit. We are hoping that we will see it change again with the next lot of AEDC data that comes out. But apart from that, we can see the local data and the anecdotals that we collect really have made a big impact. We ask the same sort of questions at every event, and we have for over the 9 years. So what I could see from the last time we had a big event and I analysed the data, we could see that more families are telling us that they have a better understanding of the importance of developing early literacy skills with children from birth. More families have joined their local libraries. More families are reading daily with their children. And having these events and having park out in the community really do help remind families of all of the above. So I have got there are some links down below if you want to have a look at what some other communities are doing. And as you can see, there's a little message on there. Parker says, reading together every day helps my brain to grow. So Paint Parks and Gardens, we develop these messages that we have displayed, and then we tailor literacy activities around them. And again, that's a really powerful message to have on display, and families really can connect to it, and children see it and know that it's Parker, and they want to know what he's telling us. That was a really quick explanation of who we are and what we do. I guess really thinking about it, we've heard today a lot about the why it's really important. We know, it's really important to read, talk, sing, play with your child every day. And this is another way of how you can work with community, work with local agencies within your community, and really take it out there and really strengthen parents' understanding about the importance of developing the early literacy skills with children from birth. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. And, it just does, add another layer to this webinar in relation to the collaborative approach, and how we need to collaborate. And, when we do collaborate and create a sense of community for families and young children, it does obviously make an impact and a difference to children's outcomes. So, it's really nice to have your perspective in relation to the community role in developing early literacy here in this webinar today, and how, Paint the Town Red, since it's been established, is obviously making a difference for those community connections. So thank you for sharing your story today. Again, here are some details too if you're looking to learn even more and to connect with Diane as well. So thank you for sharing just how we can empower communities to take the lead with this as well. Again, any questions and comments, it's really nice to pop in the chat. I know some of you are looking, probably that time is, quite precious at the moment, but I think it's nice to hear. If you do have any questions, we can respond to those as well. So thanks again, Diane. Moving on now. We're going to obviously start to wrap this amazing webinar up, and just before we do wrap this webinar up, we just wanted to draw your links back to some certain pieces in relation to Words Grow Minds. Firstly, the professional learning course. If you haven't already touched base or enrolled into any modules, and if you're interested, the Read module is an added layer, or this webinar, sorry, is an added layer to the Read module. So again, dive into those modules, hear from experts in the field, and gain some great tips and added pieces that can really support your practice. So get online and enroll. And again, we'll put up some links shortly for where you can do that. And don't forget that it's free. Make the most of that. So the campaign calendar for 2024 is certainly unfolding. Wow, this year is just flying. But once you also finish up here, don't forget to go on our website. And if you, again, that's the links to the professional learning course, but also reserve your spot for our next webinar, which will be on Sing, November 28th, again, 11 till 12:30 p.m. The link's here to reserve your spot. And we're so fortunate to have key presenters Emily and Molly from Connecting the Dots in Music, and they're going to talk about the Lullaby project in communities and how this has enriched babies, families, and the connections, and how threads of this programs and this project is still filtering through into practice and programs today. So we're also going to learn some really great tips to sing and move, and how to get families to feel confident and join in as well. So again, if you haven't reserved a spot, here's the link, and get on board for November 28th, where we can reconnect and continue our webinars then. So it's been such a pleasure to have each and every one of you join us today. Again, we are so grateful to have Ali O'Brien and Ali Durham and Diane Krieg to join us today. And you've truly enlightened our perspectives on reading to children, and in a range of ways, and how we can all take part in this amazing journey with them and the families that we connect with. Before you do finish up, we would love for you to spend a few minutes just filling out our survey. Again, your feedback is so vital for us to help moving forward and continue our webinars for you. And again, these links, if you do need to go, will be sent through in your emails after the webinar too. We'll also send the links for the webinar recording and a PDF copy as well. So stay tuned in your emails for that. Keep touching base with our website. Here's our details on the screen. Again, there's lots of community events that are detailed quite regularly on there. There's amazing new tips for families that you can take and use. And again, there's some other links here where you can really keep in tune with what's going on for Words Grow Minds as well. We look forward to coming together again as a collective group in November for our next webinar on Sing. Stay tuned and connected, and thanks so much for your input and collaborations today, and we'll see you soon.